Hi everyone, in this video what we're going to do is we're going to do a small setup or demonstration on how to implement XpoWebApi if you're using ASP.NET Core. So for that what we will use is we're going to implement what is here. These are nuggets basically. Here we have two servers, one for ASP.NET and one for ASP.NET Core. So also we have one client. The client is .NET Standard, if I recall well. Let me check. Or maybe NetCore 3, who knows. It's .NET Standard. So, okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to create an ASP.NET Core Web API. Then we will implement XPO Web API and then create a client and connect to the server. So let's open a new Visual Studio and let's create a new project. This project is going to be ASP.NET Web Application. Next. So this will be XPO Web API demo. I think there's already another folder, but let's check. No, I think it's okay, it will work. Okay, so in here I'm going to select as target 3.1. Actually, we are not doing anything for 2 and below, or 2.1 and or anything in between, because we're trying to get like really stable references and really congruent between the frameworks. So the best way for us to proceed was to move to NetCore 3.1. Otherwise, it's actually a mess. We tried to do it with 2.1, and I mean, even when it was possible, the setup became like really complicated. So going with 3.1, I think is the best, at least for now. So we want an API here, and that's basically it. So let's create a project. And let's see how this goes. Okay, so we have the API here. Let's build it for first time so it gets all the references. And okay, it succeeded. So the next what we're going to do is we're going to create a client. The client will be console application. And I'm going to do a NetCore in this case. You can also pick Net Framework. So XPO Web API client app. Okay, so we have the API and we have the client. So let's run the API at least one time to see if it's working. And good, we have the sample controller, which is the weather forecast controller. So okay, that is done. So let's see what we have here. Let's manage NuGet packages. And I'm going to go to my own feed, which is Bit Frameworks. And let's see what we have. I'm going to write XPO Web API. So let's get the server one. So we have the client, we have the server. No, so let's write providers. Okay, here is what we need. XPO, a bit XPO providers web API for AspNetCore. This is what we want, and I'm going to use 21.6. So that goes into the server. Okay, I think that's done. And now let's do the client. So let's see, bit XpoWebApi client, and it's going to be the same version, so that goes here. Okay, so far so good, I think. So let's check what is installed. Okay, the server and the client. Now what we need is basically, well, that includes XPO actually. So let's see. XPO should be one of the reference, dev express XPO and the express XPO, so I don't even have to install it anyway. Okay, so now we have the server and we have the client. So for the client, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a persistent object. This is going to be person, and let's make an XPO object. Good. So now what we need to do is to implement the constructor. I'm missing constructor. Good. So here everything is protected. Let me put it public. Actually, this is what we need. The one that we need that should be public, or this one also. And here I'm going to just write one persistent property, XPS name, and that's it. So we have the object, and let me close everything here. Okay, so now let's first set up the server. For that, because I always forget how to do it even though I wrote this. So let's see, let's go here to the, I'm going to use some code from the other repository. I'm just copy and paste like basically the 3 lines that I need. So let's take the server, and well, I think it's in the startup. You will see how easy it is. Basically, you just need to do this, take this line, the add XpoWebApi to the server. Like, this is an extension. So to your service collection, you add XpoWebApi. So let's come here to the startup, and we are like 50% done already. Good. So now we have to add a controller. I never like to add a controller like that. I usually do like this. So let's do a class. It's going to be XpoWebApi controller. You can name it as you want. It's not have to be like this, but I like this pattern, so let's leave it like that. And this is going to inherit from bit. Let's see, XPO providers web API. So we need the XPO web API controller base. Let's remove the type qualifier. And now we need to implement the constructor for this. So I will remove this one and generate constructor. Okay, because this needs to have this constructor because it will use dependency injection to inject an IC function. That's one special function that we have created that will execute the server-side code actually. So now that this is done, let's move this, move title file, and good. So now let's well, we need to do one more step, and that will be to set up the connection strings. So I will copy the connection strings from the example in GitHub. So in here I have 10 connection strings, and I will copy all of them. We don't need it, you just need one. I'm just lazy, so I prefer to just get everything. So okay, let's remove 0, 1. That's for access, and I will remove 10 also, and I will remove this. So we'll just keep 0, 2 and connection strings, and here I will delete this one, and this I will delete also, and just keep 0, 2, and that will be my connection. In this case, basically I will use an in-memory store provider, so I don't want even to create a database or anything, but in this case you have to put here the connection string for your database. And in here also you need to be careful that if your database require you to set up some nuggets, like the client, for example, for Postgres, that's one example, or maybe you're using SQLite, you should not use it actually in the set like as a server, but just for example, if you have only one client, you can use it just to test. You need to have your own, all the reference needed for your XPO provider to work, your normal XPO provider, because in here in the server you will have to set up XPO as any other normal application. Okay, so let's run the server again, and let's check if the controller is working. Okay, it opened the forecast controller, so let's do XPO Web API, and you should get something like this is working, and then you should see the full name of the controller, that is this is the assembly, this is the namespace, and this is the final name of the class. So this is the full name of the class, of the controller class that you implemented. Okay, so it's working. So this will be the URL that we need to connect on the client. So on the client, let's come here. I will just write there the URL, and let's go back to the example on GitHub. I'm just going to copy paste some code from there. So now let's go to the client project, and let's see, program. Okay, basically in here we need to take this line and put it as soon as our program starts. This will register the provider, the client provider. Good. So now that we have the client provider, what we need to do is just basically update the schemas we should do in any XPO application. Usually in DevExpress example, you will find a class called XPO helper that update the schema, create the data layer, and then create a unit of work for you. There is a method like create unit of work, but we have something like that also implemented here in the office. So let's see. That is the XPO initializer. So Let me copy this also. So let me delete this. So the XPO initializers, what it does is, let me show you. First, let's import the namespace. And here we need a connection string. So let's get the connection string. Maybe I have it here already. Yeah. Okay, so this is the connection string that we will pass, and then you need to pass an array of types, of the types that you're going to use in your application. That is something that you do in any XPO application. You create a dictionary for the data layer, and you need to pass the types. And well, in this case, we only have one type, that is person. So we just pass that. And also we can pass the data layer type. Let's see. See, there is like, if you want to create a simple data layer or a thread safe data layer, I don't remember which one is going to create by default. I think it's a thread safe data layer, and if you want a simple data layer, you have to use another overload. But anyway, basically what you need is the connection string and the type that you want to register. Then in another video, I guess I will talk about the XPO initializer. So then the URL is this one. So let's replace this. Okay, and here is the base part of the URL, and here in the second parameter you should write the path to your provider. To your controller. In this case is /XpoWebApi. Then if you want to use a token, in this case we are not, the controller is not protected by the authorization attribute, so you don't need to send a token, so I will leave it empty. And then this is the ID of the data store that we want to use on the server side. So on the server side we have connection string and number 2. See, we have in connection string sections we have one name connection string and 002. So I'm going to use this 002. Okay, and then we will init or update the schema. Basically, this what it does. It checks that the database is the structure is the same as the classes. That is what the DB updater part of XAF do, and also in XPO you have to create some class. Some code. That code you can find in the best practices article. Okay, so we have this, and now let's create some persons. So first let's do var unit of work. So this will be XPO initializer get create unit of work. So with that unit of work, what we will do is person. This will be me equals new person, and in the constructor we will pass the unit of work, and then we will set the name. For those who don't know my actual name, my real name is not Joche, is Jose Manuel Ojeda Melgar, like long Spanish name. Then in the other line, this is going to be my brother. So let's just replace the values, and then let's commit. We don't need, I mean, you can create as much records as you want, but this is a demo, so we will ask if you need to fork in transaction, you need to fork commit changes. Perfect. So what we want to show you is that it actually happened, and in this case we're not using any database, so what I'm going to do is like I'm going to read them back. So I will create even a different unit of work. I'm not going to use that one, so you see that it's not because it's the same in the same unit of work. So bar, this will be read, so it will be XPO initializer create unit of work. So we will do an XP collection of person, and well, I really like the suggestion, a collection of person is people. Yes, that's what it is. So new, thanks Mark Miller for that. And here the, or maybe it's not CodeRush, maybe it's Visual Studio. Well, now we have the collection here, so let's do a for each. So I'm going to do console.writeLine a person name, and then I'm going to do console read key. And that's it. So let's run the server. Let's go to the XpoWebApi controller just to make sure that it's working. Okay, this is working. It says right there it's working. Okay, so now the server is running. What we need to do is start the client project. So I'm going to put a debug point here, and then here go to debug and start new instance. And let's see. Okay, so we have the connection string. In the end, this is what we have. If you see, it's like quite simple. Connection string is XPO provider, the name of the provider, that is XpoWebApi provider, then the URL and the path for the controller, the token that is empty in this case, and the data store ID that we want to connect. So let's go. I'm crossing my fingers. This is, you know, the demo effect. It breaks when you're showing it to someone. Well, it worked. So let's continue. Let's create these two persons. Let's commit. And now we're going to read them back. So it's working, it's working, it's working. That's me. And here comes my brother. And done. So let me open the console. Here we are. My mom should be proud of us. We are in the console. Okay, so let's finish. And that's it. That's how simple you implement the basic structure of XpoWebApi. Just to repeat, what I did is I set up the NuGet. Here you have, if you can see, it's just one NuGet because this will include XPO anyway. So then on your startup, you add just this one line. I mean, there are more complex scenarios than this, but I will do them in a different video. And then in your app settings, you have to set up one connection string with a unique name. It can be actually this one. You can have only one if you want, but usually we got this request that they want to have one server for several data layers. And then you need to have the auto create options part of the settings. So for each connection string, you have to have an auto create option. So for example, here we have like connection string, and here we have connection string also. Here we have 002, here we have 002. It should match actually, just one to one. And that's it for the server. And for the client, well, you saw what I did is just like basically it's one line just to register this. And then after this, you can use it as you want. You don't need to use the XPO initializer. I just did it because, well, this class is part of our framework, and I did it because I didn't want to write the updater code all the time or copy, the XPO helper class from Developer Express to all my projects. So that's why I created the XPO initializer. Also because I used to have like a lot of different versions of the updating schema code. So here I have just one. If something breaks, I will fix it. Okay, so that's basically it. And then after you register and you get your connection string, then you can use it as any XPO project, basically. You don't have to do, again, I repeat, the XPO initializer. That's something that I do because it's faster and it's easier, and if you want to use it, take it. It's there for you also in the open source framework. And that's it. Well, I don't want to make this video longer, so bye everyone, take care. And if you have any question, just send me an email. You can put an issue on GitHub also if you have troubles. Or, well, I will leave the contact information in the description of this video. Bye.